Hello, my name is Jessica Smith, and I am the substitute teacher trainer at study.org. We've been training substitute teachers nationally since 1995. We love working with substitute teachers. We find them to be just such great people and eager to help out in the classrooms and help their community. We also love working with school district administrators and setting up training programs so that each of their substitute teachers can feel successful in the jobs they're taking. Now, I wanted to talk a few minutes today about one of my favorite aspects of classroom management, and that is the principles of human behavior. For substitute teachers and permanent teachers alike, classroom management is their number one concern. I wanted to bring up the principles of human behavior because if you understand principles of human behavior, you can make decisions in a lot of different circumstances. No one classroom management strategy or set of strategies is ever going to solve every classroom management problem. And in fact, you should avoid or be wary of anybody who says they can solve every classroom management problem for you. When we learn the principles of human behavior, that's when we can kind of take a step back and look at behavior from the principle standpoint and then make decisions based on what we know about human behavior. Now I'm going to resist giving you examples of these principles in action because sometimes when examples are given, if you don't agree exactly with the example or it doesn't seem like reality, then you dismiss the principle. And so what I'm going to do is teach you the principles and then ask you to watch for them as you step into the classroom. Now, the great thing about a principle is it's not bound by situation or time or age. And so you can see these principles in action in your home, in grocery stores, playing out pretty much wherever you go. So pay attention to these, and once you start noticing these principles of human behavior, it'll be easier for you to address classroom management problems. The first principle of human behavior is actually so good for substitute teachers to know. Now I'll explain why. The first principle of human behavior is behavior is largely a product of its immediate environment. And this is useful for substitute teachers to know because that means they have control. Now, when I was substitute teaching, I had just finished college and graduated in secondary education. I had student taught and was getting ready to find a permanent teaching position. So in that time, I wanted to see how other teachers were setting up their classrooms so that I could have great ideas for when I set my own classroom up. So I substitute taught so I could go from classroom to classroom to classroom, from age to age to age to see what teachers were doing that were making a difference. So as substitute teachers, we know that permanent teachers can make a huge difference in the environment of a classroom. However, sometimes we let our power go to the permanent teacher. So as substitute teachers, it's easy to say, well, the permanent teacher didn't really set up an environment where the students were eager to learn, and so therefore not much happened during the teaching day. And while this could be the case to some extent, we need to remember this first principle of human behavior, and that is behavior is largely a product of its immediate environment. As teachers for the day, as substitute teachers, we have control of the immediate environment for that day. What can substitute teachers do? What can you do to set up an immediate environment where students are likely to behave well? As you're substitute teaching, going from assignment to assignment, I want you to consider what you're doing that is setting up an environment, a learning environment. Is the way you introduce something different to one class to another, does that have an impact? So whether you set expectations at the beginning of the class, try it in a few different classes. Try setting clear expectations at the beginning, so setting up class rules if you don't see them in the classroom already. Try setting it up one day and another day not. See if it makes a difference. Try greeting students at the door one day and maybe another day don't. This is all experimenting. When it comes to human behavior, we're all just students of it. And so all we're doing is trying to increase the likelihood that students will behave well. Now, classroom management to me is the fun part of teaching. As I mentioned, it's the variable. We're not sure how students are going to respond. We're not sure how the day is going to go, even though we've set a really clear lesson plan, or we have activities in case the lesson plan ends early. But the students and how they're going to respond is unpredictable. And so that's what makes it fun. That's what makes teaching fun. Most substitute teachers teach because of interacting. They get the chance to interact with students. Now, the second principle of human behavior is going to help us increase the likelihood of students behaving well during the day. And that is that substitute teachers need to know that behavior is strengthened or weakened by its consequence. So what does this mean for substitute teachers? Well, let me pair it with the third principle of human behavior and we'll be able to gain some clarity. Principle number 3 is behavior ultimately responds better to positive consequences than to negative consequences. Now, pairing principles 2 and 3 will give us a clear picture. So principle 2 again is behavior is strengthened or weakened by its consequences. And principle 3, behavior ultimately responds better to positive consequences than negative ones. So as substitute teachers, we need to know that we can increase the likelihood of students behaving well when we respond positively to appropriate behavior versus negatively to inappropriate behavior. And we say inappropriate behavior because it's not bad behavior, it's just inappropriate for the setting. For example, if a student kicks a kickball in the classroom, we might consider that bad behavior, but think of it, is it appropriate if he's out on the playground kicking a kickball when he's in a kickball game? That's totally appropriate. So that's why we say inappropriate behavior versus bad behavior. It's just not the right behavior for the setting. So behavior ultimately responds better to positive than to negative consequences means we need to work to shift our thinking of looking for what students do poorly to what they do well. So we're looking for appropriate behavior and showing appreciation and recognizing that behavior. Principle 4 is a little bit wordy but useful to understand. So it says whether a behavior has been punished or reinforced is known only by the course of that behavior in the future. So if a behavior is repeated over and over again, we know that that behavior has been rewarded. So this can be both positive and negative. If a positive behavior continues, we know it's been rewarded. If a negative behavior has been continued or an inappropriate behavior has been continued, it also has been rewarded somehow. So believe it or not, the greatest reward for a student is teacher attention. So notice what behaviors you're paying attention to, and those are the behaviors that are going to prevail in the classroom. So if you want appropriate behavior to continue in your classroom, look for it, show appreciation for it, and comment on it. If you want inappropriate behavior to continue, nobody does. So start looking for what's appropriate and showing appreciation for it, and you'll see a big change in your classroom.